This is update for January 15, 2023, day 326 of the war, and of the date update. So first, uh, there was a viewer who asked me to sometimes recommend books, and so I guess I'm gonna start that. So this is the book that I actually recommend. It's in Russian, so I don't know how you're gonna read it, but it's about the military stuff. So just so everybody understands. There's no advertise. This is not advertising. I don't get paid for it. Totally doing it because I think it's a great book. So the name of it is name is kind of ridiculous. The name is First Scientific History of War of 1812 War. What this book is about is about the war between Russian Empire and France and Napoleon of 1812. But it actually gives you much more color on the society, on how the war machine works, especially in the Russian Empire. The author has really did great job researching everything in super great detail and somehow archival that survived the communist coup. So in 1917-18 and the civil war that happened. So highly recommend. The only problem is this book is in Russian language and it is expensive on what's the name of it on Amazon. So in Russia it costs about like $10-12. I don't know how. There is a Russian bookstore called ozon.ru. So I don't know how, if you can get it from there or not, but basically this is the book I recommend. You're really gonna learn a lot that the Russian victory was sort of accidental victory. It's nothing to do with any kind of genius or military genius or anything like that. I do have to say that the author is definitely somewhat biased in favor of Napoleon. Nevertheless, the research is still great and excellent. Now let's switch a little bit to global topics. I didn't talk about that in a while. So the most important, actually, and I think concerning, is that there are shortages of airplane spare parts developing, especially the ones that are made from titanium. If you remember the beginning of war, I was explaining how the whole titanium production cycle works. So basically, Ukraine has titanium deposits. Some of them are here. I don't know how you call it, North Zhytomyr region, and then some of them are here, southwest of the Dnipro region. And so, so Ukraine produces this iron ore, titanium ore, that then goes and is being sort of refined and melted into titanium metal in Russia. So obviously, as you can imagine, Ukraine doesn't supply titanium ore anymore to Russia, and then Russian titanium is now barred from Western markets. And so as a result, we probably will be seeing, I don't know how soon, in 6 months or 3 months or 9 months, some problems with spare parts for the for the airplanes. So then there is another news in terms of global world is really falling apart and globalization is dying essentially. So there is this meeting in Davos, which is, I would say, is extremely negative thing, but it just from an angle of how it works. So the Russian sort of all of this oligarchs say are not coming there. And the other part is that Chinese oligarchs are not coming there this year. So this is another, the most important confirmation that the globalization is dead and falling apart, and basically it's being reversed. And as it's being reversed, that really means that the prices of everything is going to go up because the costs to manufacture are going to go up. Because the reason we had, well, I wouldn't say it's cheap, but we achieved the cheapest available cost is because everything was distributed in terms of manufacturing supply to the low cost providers, whoever. If you're providing low cost resource, you're getting that. If you're providing low cost labor, you're getting, allocation. And then if if you have a low cost manufacturing facility and so on. So it was, in a way, perfectly, most efficiently allocated. The whole, production, everything was, very efficient, as efficient as it's possible. Now all of that efficiency goes away because now we have, um, almost like two separate blocks, of countries. And so, as you can imagine, that China was provider of uh, cheap labor at cheap industrial manufacturing capabilities. The more important, not so much labor anymore as industrial production. And there's no really equivalent in the world at this point right now to China. And for that reason, the inflation will persist, will remain high. It may just kind of slow down, then jump again. So it's not going to be like just kind of like even pause. We may see as a result of the Federal Reserve actions that it's just kind of slows down for a couple quarters and may sort of show up again. And so it's going to be like, in some way, it's probably going to be somewhat similar to 70s, except it's actually worse, because in 70s the world wasn't levered, and right now everybody's extremely levered. So this whole house of cards can start falling apart at any moment and without any announcement. And that really means also China. China is one of the biggest houses of cards. So so as I say, be warned. You're aware of the problem. You can then that means you're prepared. The related to this is actually speaking about the leverage and essentially like debt slaves. So in Russia, turns out that there are 8 million Russians. Like this is Russian adults. The total population of the country 148 million. So adults about half of it. So let's say 75 million. So 8 million out of 75 million. They are not allowed to leave country because they have all sorts of unpaid debts, including private and so on. So this is for those who think that Russia is a wonderful place where the family is taking care and freedom flourishes and things like that. Because this is some of the like Russian propaganda, especially in the US, how they work. They pushing this narrative that Russia somehow is for conservative values and so on, for family values, and supporting those, and that sort of resonates with the conservative people, let's say in the U.S. And then they think that by not supporting Ukraine and kind of letting things fall out the way they fall out, they really supporting someone in the world who supports their values, which is actually completely opposite of what is really happening. Because Russia is actively supporting Maduro, who I wouldn't think that you think is a supporter of family values or anything, freedom, anything. This is just basically mafia state that's named with sort of socialist mafia state, but mafia and socialism, they are essentially synonyms. There's no essential difference between that. And socialism is not the right way to say it. It's collectivism. So collectivism, mafia, communism, it's all how to say, the same sides of the one coin. And now Russia is actively supporting um, Lula in Brazil, who is uh, another mafia person who's running, on socialist agenda in Brazil, and really what this means, collectivist agenda. That's a proper way to say it. And so, just for those who really have some delusional thoughts that Russia is really um, supporting sort of freedom, individualism, supporting family values. Russia is actually none of those. Russia is about collectivism, and that's really the true nature of the beast in Russia. So hopefully that helps a little bit people to get a little bit disillusioned. Let's put it this way. Then, just to catch up for this couple days, so what important happened is um, on the 14th, Ukraine was attacked again with Russian rockets. There were several important hits. One was in Kiev. The power generator actually was destroyed completely. It's just completely like right off. One of the bigger ones. And the other one in Burштyn, I believe it's in this area, also reportedly destroyed. There is no 100% confirmation, but this time, for whatever reason, attacks were against power generators as opposed to power distribution network. As a result, there are again, acute shortages, uncontrolled blackouts. We'll see what happens out of all of this, but it's another sort of nail in the coffin of Ukrainian energy system. Then let's actually switch more to sort of military topics. Um, so, first one is about the Challenger 2 tanks. So I quickly glanced at them. They actually, I believe, I didn't do enough in-depth research, but on the surface, they're actually probably better than Abrams and Leopard 2. So I would actually say they're probably one of the greatest tanks out there. Um, and so, and even if it's 14, because they have this rifled cannon, which is nobody has it these days, because it's expensive, but it is high quality thing to have. So in a way, it's like in a World War II, I would say it's like a Panther relative to Allied or the Soviet tanks. So, and not perfect comparison. Don't like quote me like it's literally no, but it's somewhere directionally right. Let's put it this way. So I would say this even 14 tanks could be extremely deadly in the right hands, but unfortunately, Ukrainian if they get into Ukrainian army the way it is, they're not going to be in the right hands. And I'll actually review a little bit more about what happened in Soledar as more information emerges. You'll see how basically it's all incompetence of Ukrainian command that caused all of that. There's no problem with soldiers or whatever. This has nothing to do with that. There was also some of the viewers sending me some YouTube videos saying there's some mutiny in Ukrainian army. There's no mutiny. This is just Russian propaganda. If there's anything, the way you know it's real is you're gonna wake up and there won't be current Ukrainian president, there won't be current Ukrainian military top. That's how you will know that something happened. But otherwise, there is no that kind of what you call mutiny. That's not what's going on in Ukrainian army at this point. But there is a huge dissatisfaction, and I would say slow motion enlightening process among Ukrainian sort of soldiers and low level commanders that's starting to realize with this um, political and military leadership, there is no way to win the war. But it's not sort of done process. It's still, as I said, slow motion process. It's going to take some time, but it has started, and that's in a way important. Uh, Now let's switch to actually Russian side, and because Wagner Group was so successful, well, I would say successful, but there are some, let's say, caveats. It's not sort of clean success, but nevertheless, they delivered result. Let's put it this way. Um, so there was uh, extreme level of hatred from this old Soviet um, military top in Russia towards Wagner Group, and the way it translates is that it looks like the head of Wagner Group had to fly to Russian president to defend Wagner mercenaries as a sort of standalone unit. So uh, basically, if you remember, there was changes in Russian military command recently, like 4 or 5 days ago, and the whole point of that is that current Russian Minister of Defense sent his head of how you call it headquarters to take control of Wagner mercenaries, basically kind of like turn them into the typical Russian unit or break it down into several Russian army units. Um, and what that really means is to kill essentially Wagner mercenaries. So that's why there is extreme level of sort of war animosity between the two groups. So far, it looks like Wagner Group still stands, but there was extremely strong attack on it, and that attack is not over. It will continue. This, if Wagner mercenaries were like as a group sort of incorporated in the Russian army, it would be the best thing for Ukraine. Because if Wagner Group continues existing the way this as independent unit, it will continue inflicting heavy losses on Ukrainian side. Because Ukrainian side is exactly the same Russian Soviet army. They are kind of like, as I said, they twins. They two sides of the same coin, and two, incapable, inept, unprofessional systems. And because the system is unprofessional, the one that's a little bit better, which is Wagner mercenaries, always wins because it's a better system. So so remains to be seen where this sort of bureaucratic fight goes in the inside of Russia. But if it's sort of destroyed, meaning by destroyed that it's split and incorporated into Russian armies, Russian army units, then this war probably is going to turn into total stalemate, and Ukraine may have ability to actually do some kind of offensive. If things don't change, then Russia and specifically Wagner mercenaries will continue their offensives, and slowly but surely will be sort of breaking Ukrainian defensive lines, but more importantly, inflicting heavy losses, casualties on Ukrainian army, and undermining morale of Ukrainian army. And that's a goal actually of Wagner mercenaries. Their goal is not to capture territory, which is absolutely correct approach, but actually kill people and undermine morale. So that's why they're super dangerous. While Russian military otherwise is, let's say, toothless. But as I said, Wagner Mercenaries is extremely dangerous organization, and extremely effective organization at the same time, and that's what makes it extremely dangerous. So let's now actually do walks through the front line, starting from very north, and then we're going to go in clockwise fashion. So the exchange of the artillery fire is somewhat intensified along this state border, all driven by these attacks against Ukrainian assets inside of the energy assets, and Ukraine then just tries to retaliate, and that's just kind of like tit for tat fight there. Let's now switch to North Lugansk front line. Things here are essentially quiet with some Russian attack here. Want to mention something. You probably have seen video of two Ukrainian soldiers that tried to surrender, that they were killed by the Russian soldier during attack. And that actually happened somewhere here, Krasnopolivka area, in this area. And I just want to highlight, this is actually what happened there. Obviously killing soldiers who want to surrender is wrong. There's no question about it. But if you watch the entire video, what you realize is that, and that is actually regular Russian unit. It kind of tells you everything about the morale and desire to fight. So about like 65 to 70% of the unit, of that attacking unit, didn't want to actually, they were sitting quite far behind in the forest and were not really supporting the attack. And really, the only reason this attack was successful by Russian troops, because there was this like 30% hardcore soldiers in this unit specifically. And I don't know why, just accident, whatever. But those 30% hardcore really essentially won the day for that unit. And they managed to destroy Ukrainian troops. They actually attacked, pushed out Russian troops, and were seeking to sort of solidify control of that area. And they were just not expecting strong counterattack. They used to sort of weak Russian sort of units that are not really willing to fight, and if you push, they just leave. And they were sort of surprised, and that's why you saw that strange reaction by those two soldiers who wanted to. First, they saw that this is theirs. They misunderstood. They were totally lost. And so going back is this is why it's Russian army is not capable at large of making large advances or serious advances, unless obviously they totally outnumber Ukrainian troops, which so far it's not even close. They may be 1-to-1 relationship at this point, but it's definitely not like they're not outnumbering Ukrainian army. So again, it all goes back to the individuals who want to do something, because otherwise majority of the soldiers, especially in Russian army, they don't want to take any kind of risk. They don't want to pretty much put them under any kind of risk, as I said. And in Wagner Mercenaries, those 30%, it's more of like entire unit is like that. And so that's why hopefully at very like low level, you're starting to understand the huge difference between people who are motivated and want to achieve something, and those who just say, I want to say Walking Dead, but like zombies there, just basically collecting paycheck. Now let's move south. Let's see what's going on North Donbass front line. Things here more or less the same. The only thing is that Wagner Mercenaries made some small advances here south of Krasnopolivka, They pushed a little bit Ukrainian troops. They still stuck trying to capture that railroad station, Seal or Salt. Let's actually look at the situation. I just want to discuss this. And they still haven't captured this salt mine number 7. So essentially, these two strongholds are standing. This train station under sort of more risk, let's put this way. The Wagner mercenaries here are extremely close. Essentially, the area is being sort of contested and maybe in the process of being lost by Ukrainian side. But let's actually look how and why Wagner mercenaries managed to capture Soledar. And they had some losses, but at large, that is was actually pretty clever operation and successful operation. Otherwise, they would probably never be able to do it and would suffer tremendous losses. So what they did, as you can see, is shown here. They launched false frontal attack along this like Solidarska улица here and in this area basically. Here then Ukrainian command completely misunderstood that, sent the reinforcements here, basically accumulated Ukrainian troops here in this area. Then they also attacked, and then Wagner mercenaries started attack from Yakovlevka, which is, if you go back there, that's where it is, somewhere here. There was no defensive apparent lines of Ukrainian troops here anywhere in these fields, and for whatever reason, Ukrainian command decided that Russian troops will not attack from here, which they did. They attacked from here, but to even more confuse, then they turned towards this northwest, where Krasnopolivka is here. So the Ukrainian command again made mistake, pulled some other reserves to the Krasnopolivka area, and then this area become basically open without much there, and so that's how Wagner mercenaries essentially quickly overcome. They gain control of this part of the town and this height, which is a key height in the town, and that really then they started controlling this road and supply of resources to the Ukrainian troops here, and that essentially forced withdrawal from this essentially encirclement here. But that withdrawal costed a good number of lives to Ukrainian troops because it was under the direct fire of Wagner mercenaries. And so they didn't lose that much capturing Soledar. And as you can see, this was very clear. I would say it's nothing special if you're really competent, but for someone who incompetent, it looks like some kind of like rocket science, but just normal common sense thinking. And that's why, and it was basically planned by the captain level person who was basically fired from the Russian army, and so he came to Wagner mercenaries, and there are a bunch of people like that, and so as you can see, there is negative selection or reverse selection in Russian army and Ukrainian army the same way, and then people who are who are actually good people, like what I mean by that, capable, right, professionally. In Ukrainian army, unfortunately, there is no outlet for those. In Russian system, the Wagner mercenaries is outlet, and they go there and they deliver results, and so that's how it works at the organizational level. Hopefully that explains. And as you can see, this is again common sense captain level person essentially captures pretty good stronghold, extremely kind of like how to say strong stronghold that otherwise would be probably impossible to capture. or it would cost so many lives for Wagner mercenaries that would be completely Pyrrhic a victory. They still lost a good number of people, but nevertheless, the result is definitely worse. Let's put this way. And so again, this is why this happened. And again, it also highlights incompetence of Ukrainian command. Just people have no clue, but that's a result because you select to the top people who are not intelligent, but who are sort of loyal, or they will do whatever you want. Basically, corrupt people, and competence never corrupt. So for that reason, you either have corruption or competence. You don't have both. And Ukrainian army and Russian army, they all select corruption over competence. And so when you have other system that selects competence, that system wins. And so hopefully that explains the whole problem with all of this. Now let's keep looking south. So there are some attacks, Klishivka and even more south here towards Bakhmut, but it's definitely some kind of like consolidation time for the Russian side here. Then let's move to central Donbass front line. There were a lot of Russian regular army attacks. As you can see, that all didn't go pretty much anywhere. So Pesky Salient, this Marinka that they're trying to capture, I don't know for how long, probably actually from the very beginning of the war. Novomikhailivka. Then, for example, if you remember that suicidal attack to capture Pavlivka, which is straight south of Vuhledar, which doesn't get you anything. That was a perfect example of the Russian army and Russian military top that's completely incompetent, right? So they did capture, costed of a tremendous number of losses for the Russian side, did not achieve anything, just dead end, right? And so now they're trying to sort of look for the weaknesses. So you see like the attack here in Novovelika Novosilka, and then along this road, trying to find other places where they can start moving, because here it's just simply dead end in this area due to the nature, due to the geography, or well, I guess elevation in this area. And the similar station in Novomikhailivka. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of resources, and even you can say here there are motivated units such as this naval infantry brigades. At the same time, if you have terrible organization, nothing can fix it. Even this naval infantry brigades will be dying without achieving pretty much anything. And the same things happening on Ukrainian side when they face Wagner mercenaries. And then let's just quickly check the Zaporizhya front line. Things here are quite the same, nothing changing here. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.